So, this is our first kind of formal teaching piece. So how does that feel? That's like moving differently, like formal teaching piece. Oh my goodness. So good morning. Shall we take a breath? Ah, great. One thing we're going to learn to do this week is to access what we call practitioner fulcrums, where we have inner fulcrums, midline fulcrums, inner state of stillness, that from which we orient to another. And what we'll ask you to do is to set that up also receiving lectures, information. If there's a demonstration session, we all become observers to help hold the space, etc. So although we haven't done that, the idea is for you to settle back and just let the information come to you and receive what you can receive. And so many of us tend to go out there, with our attention, and just to really practice settling back and letting my voice, the information, whatever, so again, and obviously take the notes you want and all that. But if you're ready to see if you enter a receptive state with it all, what begins to clarify, and the important bits will emerge for you, which may be different from another person. Does that make sense? Right. One of the wonderful understandings in a biodynamic approach to the work, and you see this in other traditions too, but I'm talking particularly about our tradition, is that there is a deep appreciation that at the heart and core of our human condition, there is health. And that health is never lost. That health is ever present. That the ordering forces of the universe, if you like, as they manifest within our system, are never lost. And Dr. Sutherland called the expression of that health, that ongoing ordering principle within us and around us that is never lost, primary respiration. And we begin to perceive at its root an incredibly stable respiratory movement that moves through everything and that supports our being here. That supports our being here in every moment. And it is quite extraordinary once that becomes a perceptual awareness, not an idea or a belief, but a perceptual awareness. And primary respiration is the most inherent resource of our human system that is there at the moment of conception and is there throughout life, and is even there at the moment of death. So there is health at the moment of death, which is very hard maybe for us to get our heads around. So that death itself is not a defeat. It is part of the process of our life. And Sutherland called the roots of that, the roots of primary respiration, that which manifests primary respiration, the breath of life. And we'll talk more about the breath of life, the idea of it this afternoon, and we'll talk a little bit about Sutherland's experiences in that territory. And when he used the term breath of life, he was not trying to be poetic. He was not creating a metaphor. He was trying to describe his direct experience. And you see the idea of the breath of life in many traditions: China, the great breath, the Tai Chi, the sacred breath of Christianity. The original Aramaic that was translated for Holy Spirit, or even worse, Holy Ghost, was sacred breath. The sacred breath descended upon it. Sacred breath. That comes from the Hebrew, Ra. the sacred breath. And you see this in many traditions. And there's the understanding of that which connects us to source and maintains our connection to the roots of life itself. And this is what Dr. Stubborn, in his clinical experience, began to perceive, which is really extraordinary. This morning, we're going to take things slowly and start to look at the idea of resources. Let's start to look at the idea of resources. The breath of life and primary respiration that it generates is, in our work, our most basic resource, and the most basic resource of the immune system in terms of order and organizing principles. But the idea of resources takes us into everyday life also. When a client can come into my space in a very resourced place in themselves, where they don't tend to activation, where the nervous system isn't all over the place, where they have a sense of wellness in the midst of whatever's happening for them, it's an incredible help in the process. If a person can lie down on your table feeling already resourced in themselves. Does that make sense? So one of the things we would like you to start working with, as we do, is it is an inner experience of some kind of felt resource, some kind of feeling tone and quality that in this present moment tells you you're okay. Yeah, in the midst of whatever is happening. So we're really going to start look at the idea of felt resources, embodied resources. Now, we've been working with this for years here at the Institute, both in the cranial work and then the core process psychotherapy work. The idea that you don't go anywhere in a session unless you have the resources to hold it. Yeah, you don't hold suffering unless you have the resources to hold the suffering. Done. And you help a client build in a sense of resource also. I remember back in 1992, I presented at a conference at the University of Michigan that Peter Levine was also presenting at. Have you heard of Peter Levine? He's he's become one of the world's foremost experts on trauma and traumatization. He's developed an approach that he calls somatic experiencing, where you're really with your experience in present times, somatically, how to process your faith. Yeah. Help process traumatic activation and what he calls trauma vortices. Have you ever felt like that you just be carried, swept away in a vortex of suffering, or activation? And these are actually real things within us, these impacts of trauma. And in his work, the first thing you establish in the person is a sense of resource. Because you can't go anywhere else unless there's some space or resource. We talk about the establishment of presence, of spaciousness, of appropriate pacing, and things like that. So at the end of my talk, he came up to me and he said, "FRANKLYN, I think we're saying the same thing, but using a different language." And that was really true. So we made a real nice connection. And he's a really nice man, lovely guy. And we used some of his language in the course around this territory, which is very useful. What I wanted to do for a first thing, very simple exercise. Can you get out a blank sheet of paper and a pen or pencil? I'm going to do a little exercise together. Together. Now, let's just have that ready. You're not going to use it just yet, but I just want you to have it ready. Now, the idea of a resource in our life has many levels. Inherently, it's how we feel inside ourselves. But it's also the things of our life that connect us to that. Yeah. So, the sense of feeling resource is an inner state, an inner quality. And there may be things in our life that connect us to that. So, in terms of outer resources, what resources may, there may be people, places, things, activities, pets, a wonderful resource, people, places, things, activities. Is that pretty much covered? Well, that music, that's an activity. It's also playing, So there are things in our life that help us connect to that. It could be food, with a reasonable, meeting friend, you know. It could be a certain place in our garden that we like to sit, or it could be certain music or poetry. All sorts of things. People, good friends who are totally accepting of who we are. That's a resource. At the level of our being, they may not like the fact we did that, but that's okay because you're still my friend. Yeah, that kind of connection can be very resourceful. Activities, running, sports, how we keep fit, yoga, meditation, practices that bring us into relationship to stillness, to the sacred, whatever that means for us, incredibly helpful. And it's very interesting when clients come in a pretty bad state, maybe they're pretty traumatized. When a lot of people come in these days in shock, they come in very activated. Their autonomic nervous system is all over the place. They're either in very hyper sympathetic states, frozen parasympathetic states, confusion. And so we have to learn as cranial practitioners to help the system settle and process some of the shock before anything else can occur. And it's very interesting because these people are very commonly really, really, really cut off from what resources now. They forget that they love Mozart. They forget that they used to like to do this, or they stop seeing their friends. So helping them start to build in a network of resource again is very, very, very helpful. What I'd like you to do in a minute, actually just now, is to go inside yourself and think about what resources you, friends, activities, places. It could be a whole range of things, from very active things to meditation, to painting, to music, whatever. So I'd like you just to take a minute to think about that and then just start to make a list of the things that you have in your life that resources you. So take your time. I give you some space to do that. If you want to stop a moment, to let things move, let's think about it, and then write whatever you need to do. We'll just give you the space for a few minutes. Okay. I'd like to take this another step. What I'd like you to do next is to notice how that translates to a sense of inner resource. And also, what are your inner resources? That could be things you know about yourself. That could be traits. I know that when I get in this kind of situation, I can do this. I know These are aspects of who I am that I need to sometimes remember and feel resourced in. And even things that initially aren't resourcing can become resourcing. Like I spent the good part of the first third of my life very, very dissociative. So my mode of being was very dissociative. And it wasn't until I was about 32 that I realized I lived up here most of the time. Yeah, hello, nice to meet you. Which was comes from very early experience, very early trauma, really, womb trauma for me, and the tendency to not want to feel the permeation of badness within me. Kind of, hold on, things are much better now. Of course, that there's a price to pay for that, and aliveness, and also relatedness. You know, for instance, I was feeling all sorts of sensations and feelings, but they had nothing to do with what was actually happening because I wasn't connected. So that was, and then when I started to come back, what I had to deal with was the pain of being here. That's why I was up here, you know. So that was quite a journey to come back and to deal with what I had and to be with it. But you know, now dissociation is a real friend because there's nothing wrong with dissociation. It's a protective response. It's just when you live it, it's not particularly enlivening or relational. Does that make sense? There's a price to pay for that way of protecting yourself. So, however, now if I find myself going into a dissociative place, which feels a bit removed, a bit spacey now, etc., it's like the red warning light on the dashboard of your car. It tells me something important is going on that I have to pay attention to. So now even dissociation has become a resource because now I know how to bring myself back and I can pay attention. So I'm just saying almost any inner process, even if it was at first not skillful particularly, can become a useful resource. Does that make sense? So what I'd like to do is to think about your inner resources, your strengths, feelings, and feel resource, etc. How some of these outer resources translate to inner qualities also. And so think about yourself and just take a moment and then write about your inner resources. It may be aspects of your self structure that's resourcing. You know, it may be a belief you have about the world. No matter what happens, I know I'll get through. That's a great resource to have as a great birth state. No matter what happens, I know I'll get through. You know, what even there may be certain beliefs about self and other and life that are very resourceful that we can remember every now and then. But it doesn't mean they're real or unreal. It's just they become a resource. Does that make sense? So take a few minutes and just think about yourselves and see what you write as your inner resources. Again, that may connect to the outer experience of being with a friend or whatever. Like, when I'm in that space where I can settle and feel safe with someone, I know I'm a very loving person. Isn't that nice to know? Yeah. Another minute. Okay, great. So let's take a breath. And just take a minute and look at that list. Just really take in what you've just written. Just take a moment to really look at. Because you may find that this is an ongoing process to discover what my inner resources are. And that unfolds over time. Great. And any thoughts? Anyone want to share anything about that? Just that little process we just did. So it's much harder to put that into words if you're wanting. So that's would be a very useful thing to work with, I think.
It's kind of conflicting, and I can really do often. In every thought, and then there's the other side of me that just doesn't have the, like a lot of mine are about feelings and beliefs and inner strength, and there's all the shadow.
Yes.
I would balance with that.
So I think that will be true for all of us, won't it? There was a very interesting analyst named Ronald Fairbairn, who was a Scot, and he really reframed Freudian belief into something completely else. And he talked about how very early on, when we're in the womb and early infancy, there's a kind of felt continuity with others, and the relational field we find ourselves in will always be variable. Sometimes our needs are met, sometimes not. Sometimes we're seen, sometimes not. And we can take on some of that as feeling bad, and it gets translated into feeling bad about ourselves. And it can generate what he'd call the internal saboteur, that part of ourselves that sabotages the okayness. Yeah. So just note that and just say, okay, there's that. And then you may find that in the midst of that, there is choice. And being able to make that choice is very empowering. You know, we're actually not stuck with our affects. We don't have to get stuck in depression if we don't want it, for instance. There are ways to shift and move and change, and we're never really stuck. So that kind of, just so we bring it into awareness, the more and more we hold that awareness, the more we can have choice in that. But I think that's something that we all have to face too. So thank you for sharing that. Does that resonate with other people? Yeah. So you're not alone in that. Isn't it a pain in the butt having all these little voices inside ourselves that say we're no good? I mean, what's the use of that? That never helped anybody, including my family and friends or whatever. That's not going to help them either. Anyone else want to share anything? Okay, let's take this another step before our break. Okay, take another 15 minutes, little exercise. What I'd like to do next is to see if we can access very intentionally an inner felt experience of okayness. So we're going to do this almost like a little meditation process. And I also help clients do this in the beginning of work with that. I find it very useful because most people don't realize that it's possible to intentionally access a feeling of okayness. That can be very empowering for people. Does that make sense? Okay. We'll just wait. So what I'd like you to do is to come into a comfortable position. Oh, there's still a couple more people in the loop, so we'll wait a moment. Thank you. And together. If you can settle into a sitting position that you're comfortable in. And maybe we'll do this with eyes closed. Bring your awareness into your body in your own time. Kind of breathe, follow your breath in like we did this morning. And just find yourself in a wide awareness of sensation and feeling tone. That includes as much of the whole of your trunk, certainly, from the top of your neck down to your perineal floor. Just holding the sense of awareness of feeling tone, sensation, and notice what's present for you just now. Sensation, feeling tone, emotional qualities, anything in that territory. There also may be physical things going on, tightness, pain. Include that just now. And just notice what is prominent for you. Without narrowing your attention to it, without going to whatever's there, just holding in awareness. And I'd like it to float a question in your body-mind, if you like. And the question is, in the midst of whatever is present for me, in the midst of whatever is here, what tells me I'm okay just now? In the midst of what is ever present for me, whatever conditions are here, what tells me I'm okay just now? On the felt level, on the level of feeling tone, sensation, overall qualities. And don't try to answer that, just see what emerges. It may be an area of your body that feels a certain way. It may be the stability of the ground under you. It may be a tonal quality that takes a little while to name. And if that's not clear, there's another little thing that can help. If there is a memory of something or an image of something that's totally resourcing, it might be an image of that place in the garden that you love to sit in, or that lying on the beach in Jamaica, or it may be a dear friend or a spiritual image, or it may be something that you like to do. Whatever that image is of something that's totally resourcing. You know, it's my little Aunt Sylvia in the South Bronx, you know, who loved me more than anyone else. Bring that image into your body and see what seems to resonate on a felt level. That could sometimes help connect. And when something starts to clarify, I'd like you to name it to yourself or describe it to yourself. Oh, when I bring the question, what tells me I'm okay just now? I feel warmth in my belly. I feel settled. I remember this person or activity or thing. It resonates with that, or whatever helps. It may be feeling suspended in space and held by the universe. It may be the ground underneath me. It may be a feeling that translates into a light state of some kind. To see what words describe that quality of okayness to you just now. Maybe there's a word that just is a handle into that for you. And that's very useful clinically, because every now and then I might want to remind my client, oh, can you remember that sense of stability? Or can you remember that golden glow? Or can you remember Aunt Sylvia just now? And how does that feel? What's the sense of that for you just now? Just taking another minute, just accessing a felt sense of resource. It may be very present, it may not have clarified. We'll keep working with this. Okay, taking a breath, acknowledging wherever you are. And opening your eyes in your own time, looking around. Great. How was that little exercise for you? Wonder. Sorry? Lovely. So it was useful. Great. Anyone else want to share anything about that?
Yeah. Guys, that I'm reading that just in Latin, which not
I mean, some
Latin.
laughter, something. So that has meaning for you. Okay, great.
And every time that happens, it's a little bit stronger.
Every time you enter that territory.
Yeah.
Great. Good. So you feel very settled in yourself. Okay. We'll let that be for now. Yeah. Just kind of letting that settle. And we're going to work with it also at the tables, where when we start a session at the table, we're going to remind each other about our felt resource. But just settle in the sense of contact on the table. Take a breath. What tells you you're okay just now? So we have this little thing that we all understand what that means now. That little, so that means this whole process we've been through. So we may have to be a little bit how we are now, maybe bring an image in, whatever works. But what tells you you're okay just now? And is there a word or phrase you can share with me so that during the session I might feel that would be useful to remind you of that? So that's why I asked to see if there's a word or phrase that gives you a handle on that. Yeah, it could be the blackness or whatever, or the feeling of belly roll or the feeling of solidity, whatever words come up for you or that person. Yeah. So we'll work more with that as we go on. Okay. Shall we take a break? And shall we come back at 20 to 12 and 20, a little over 20 minutes? Okay. And one thing I asked, can we think about this space like a Zen dojo? So if we take blankets, could we please fold them back up neatly? If we have blankets by our cushions, could we fold them up? So we keep order in the space. And I find that very helpful if we keep that kind of consciousness. Thank you.